Hola amigos, bienvenidos a un nuevo programa de literatura actual con su anfitrión Darío Aguilar Peregrina y my co-host Stacy Hawks. Welcome back here on Literatura Today program. Hi Stacy.
Hi Dario, and Happy New Year to all of our watchers on Literature Today. It's great to have everyone back.
Thank you again Stacy. Also, again, Happy New Year to everybody, and here's to a new year. Let's hope better things are coming, and also another great stories we're going to hear tonight on this program and other things in the future. Amigos y amigas, estamos muy emocionados de nuevo en estar en este gran programa para ustedes, deseándoles obviamente un nuevo feliz año nuevo, que la hayan pasado muy bien con sus familias y por supuesto empezaremos otra gran edición de este programa. El día de hoy tocaremos un tema muy importante que es la ciencia ficción. We're going to talk about science fiction stories. As you know, Stacy, and I know they are very popular. They are, I think, one of the biggest genres, I think, that is the most popular, at least, I think, on Amazon and also in other parts of the world. I think it's the most popular genre. Amigos, amigas, pues vamos a hablar acerca de esto de qué es la ciencia ficción y por supuesto, pues comenzamos. Stacy, for you, what is a science fiction story? Para ti, ¿qué es una historia de ciencia ficción?
Well, a science fiction story to me is a story that takes a look at the alternative way of life made possible by either technology or alien life, something in that realm. And it has sometimes been referred to as speculative fiction, I know. It's basically the outer limits and the Twilight Zone type of stories.
Absolutely. And the definition you gave me is the same, nearly the same as the one as when you search on the bar. It's literally the same expression. Science fiction is a genre, as you said, of a speculative fiction which deals with imaginative and futuristic concepts. And also, there are other different genres of these science fiction stories, and it's related to fantasy, horror, and superhero fiction. There are many other subgenres in the science fiction story. Amigos y amigas, Stacy nos acaba de comentar para ella qué es la definición de una historia de ciencia ficción. Y bueno, como ella nos comentó, al igual que por lo que investigamos en internet, una historia de ciencia ficción es esta historia que normalmente habla de estos temas futuristas, estos temas de la tecnología, de la ciencia, también relacionado con, por ejemplo, con cosas de la vida extraterrestre y puede combinarse con otros subgéneros, por ejemplo, la fantasía, el horror y, por supuesto, los superhéroes y muchos otros subgéneros más en este tipo de historias. Stacy, on your opinion, for the next question, can you tell me authors of this genre? ¿Nos puedes dar ejemplos de estos autores de este género?
I sure can. One of my favorites lately, and I can't wait for his next book. He was my co-host on the Writing Wall podcast, Philip Raymond Brown. He writes this kind of historical fiction sci-fi matchup. And so his books it gives you strength in harvesting earthlings. And if you love history and you love sci-fi, check out Philip Raymond Brown and his books. Some others more well-known are probably Carl Sagan. He wrote the book Contact. And then Dean Koontz also wrote sci-fi. He wrote a book called The House at the End of the World. And of course, we've got classics like 1984 by, George Orwell and H.G. Wells, The Time Machine. So, I mean, you've got like tons and tons of sci-fi authors out there to pick from.
Absolutely. Also, a shout out for Philip. Thank you again for being on the Writing Wall podcast. Also, I met him, I remember 3 years ago in the open mic you made.
He is so awesome. It
was awesome. He creates great stories. Amigos y amigas, para quienes no sepan, bueno, estamos hablando de la pregunta de ¿qué autores de ciencia ficción conocemos y cuáles podrían recomendarnos? Y en este caso, Stacy nos acaba de mencionar uno que ya fue invitado en The Writing Wall Podcast, que por favor sigan ese programa sigan todo lo que tiene The Writing Wall Podcast, Stacy. Van a tener una nueva revista este año, pero eso vamos a hablar un poco más adelante. Philip Raymond Brown es un autor que ya ha estado en el podcast de Stacy y sin duda tiene diferentes historias de este estilo de género, con esta ciencia ficción, esto de sobre todo, pues crear historias, ¿no? Y como recomendaciones, bueno, It Gives You Strength es el libro de Philip Raymond Brown. En español sería Te da fortaleza, hay fortaleza. Y también tiene otros libros, por lo que estoy viendo, como Harvesting Earlings for Fun and Profit. I think they are other books that he has. En español sería, en este caso, Cultivando seres por diversión y por beneficio. Esa sería una traducción más o menos literal del libro que él hizo. Y por supuesto, también Stacy nos comentó acerca de estos autores, también conocidos como George Orwell con su novela de 1894. Y tenemos también, por ejemplo, otros ejemplos. En mi caso, tenemos Isaac Asimov, él hizo grandes historias acerca de los robots. Stacy, on my case, other great authors of science fiction I remember is Isaac Asimov's stories. And I remember one of his stories was adapted in the movie I, Robot with Will Smith. That is one of my favorites. That is really, really great. Also, I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, the name is Philip K. Dick. I don't remember. But it's the one that created the idea behind the Blade Runner movies.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it is Philip something. It's been a long time since I thought about Blade Runner. Oh my gosh.
No. You know. Again, I really love to make the comparison between books and movies. You know, I'm a very big movie fan. But this author created a story that is the basic idea of Blade Runner with Harrison Ford and the new one with Ryan Gosling. I don't remember the name right now. I'm going to search it. But
it's Philip K. Dick. He was the one that wrote Blade Runner. Philip K. Dick.
Philip K. Dick wrote the Blade Runner stories, and I really Blade Runner. I have mixed feelings. I love the setting, but I think the story is a little bit too slow for my opinion. But it's a great and artistic achievement in the movie history. Y bueno, regresando a esta parte de los autores, amigos y amigas, también le comentaba a Stacy que había otro llamado Philip K. Dick que creó las historias de Blade Runner. Quienes hayan visto las películas, bueno, pues es esta historia de este detective de Harrison Ford en este mundo futurista. Y por supuesto son unas historias que la verdad tienen mucho potencial a mi gusto, pero a veces están un poco lentas. Sin embargo, son un gran logro para el cine, en este caso de ciencia ficción. Stacy, in my case, for Latin authors of science fiction stories, well, there are not so many. I'm going to be honest with you, because this genre, I think, is more for the English literature, for the American literature. I know many examples of American and English literature authors, but in Latin America, we don't really have many. I would be lying to you right now if I told you recognized authors from the science fiction stories. But for example, we have, just wait me a minute, we have other examples of creators of these science fiction stories, returning again with the American ones. We're going to have many other examples, but we're going to pause right now. And we're going to be back here on Literature Today. Vamos a una pausa, amigos, y ahorita regresamos y les diremos más acerca de estos autores y mucho más. Y estamos de regreso aquí en Literatura Actual, conversando sobre más historias de ciencia ficción. We're back on Literature Today, and we were talking about these great science fiction stories. And I was a little bit lagging because I didn't know many Latin American authors. Sorry again, because this genre, as I told you before, Stacy and public, it's not we don't have many authors. But thanks to Stacy, that in the commercial break gave me a great list. Here are other names from the Latin American world that we have of science fiction stories. We have many examples, such as Carmen Maria Machado with her book Her Body and Other Bodies, also Daniel José Older with Shadows Shaper, Ana Castillo with So Far From God. Amigos y amigas, bueno, estábamos comentando Stacy y yo antes de que fuéramos a la pausa sobre estos autores. Y una vez más pido disculpas porque en serio, este género pues no es muy conocido. Amigos y amigas, por favor, cuando vean el programa, déjenos en los comentarios qué autores también nos recomiendan. Pueden ser locales o pueden ser que incluso otros que no hayamos conocido. Please, on the comments, right when we finish this program, you can let your advices, your suggestions for readings. So we have many others, great authors to read. And Stacy gave me a list. Stacy me dio una lista sobre estos autores. Y estos autores, por ejemplo, me comentó, fueron Carmen María Machado con, por ejemplo, el libro Su cuerpo y otros partidos. De Daniel José Older también tenemos Shadow Shaper, que podría decirse la forma de las sombras. Y también de Ana Castillo de Tan lejos de Dios. E igualmente, Stacy, I read another list from a newspaper called El Imparcial, The Impartial, that recommended other authors, such as Ansibles, Perfiladores y otras máquinas del ingenio. In Spanish, it would be, in English, sorry, it would be the Machines of the Mind, The Machines of the Mind by Andrea Chapela. A book that is about from a futuristic Mexico City and how many other stories correlate in the city. Another story, for example, we have 10 Planets by Yuri Herrera. This is another story that we have a mix between the insecurity problem that we have right now in Mexico, but with a science fiction twist. So it's another recommendation from the Impartial, and many other examples we have as The Third World After the Sun from Rodrigo Bastidas, El Tercer Mundo Después del Sol. Amigos y amigas, también es otra recomendación que aquí nos dice el periódico El Imparcial y que nos habla acerca de, pues, cómo los chamanes, cómo las historias prehispánicas se pueden combinar para crear ciencia ficción. This book, Stacy, from the Third World After the Sun, it's about a mix between the pre-Hispanic stories that we had, such as Quetzalcoatl and the other Aztec gods, but also creating ones for the future. It's a mix between a futuristic pre-Hispanic thing. And also, another example of this list is Tenochtitlan by Federico Schaffler. It's from 2015 and it's an anthology of 30 stories for Mexican authors that gave many stories about how Mexico could be in the future, how Latin America can be in the future, but also if the apocalypse is real. Another recommendation. Amigos y amigas, también otro libro que les recomendamos es Tenochtitlan de Federico Schaffer, que es una antología de 30 historias acerca de lo futurista que es Latinoamérica y también cómo se combina con, pues, con los diferentes Méxicos posibles. And Stacy, returning with you for another question, can you tell me why do you think these kind of stories are so popular? ¿Por qué son tan populares estas historias?
You know, there's something about technology and the exploration of it, or other planets, and evolving as human beings and as the human race. And we're seeing it now with AI. But as we're starting to advance, we're also captivating more and more of our imaginations. Like, how far can this go? It gives rise to creativity, basically, and it just taps into a lot of different emotions. I mean, some of us are afraid of it. Some of us are excited about it. Some of us are sort of uneasy about it. But either way, you know, sci-fi just, it has a way of exploring our relationships to technology, society, and individuals. And it's very it's never really out of date, is it? I mean, it can never really go out of date because technology is always changing. We're always changing. And that's part of the excitement and the lure, I think, to sci-fi.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you are telling me this heart of these stories, when you can relate how human emotion can relate with technology, it's a really really great combination, a really great mix, because these kind of stories, that's why you told me, are popular. You can mix everything. I don't remember, I don't know if you remember, Stacy, a movie called Bicentennial Man by Robin Williams. It's one of my favorites, and it covers those topics that you are telling me, the human relationship with technology, and how this character played by Robin Williams wants to become human. He's a robot, but he wants to become a human to experience those things, such as love, such as I don't know, be old, and also live his life from another point of view. It's a really nice story. I recommend it for the public that is seeing this program. And also, this is the example I think Stacy is telling me when you're telling me about how science fiction is. It's an example of these stories. Amigos y amigas, Stacy nos acaba de comentar por qué estas historias son tan populares. Y sin duda, como ella nos comenta, principalmente es esto de que puedes combinar las relaciones humanas, cómo incluso con la tecnología que hay, se puede combinar esto de la pasión, esto también acerca del deseo de explorar los humanos, pero también la tecnología. Esto es algo increíble por eso de este género. Y en este caso le di el ejemplo de la película del hombre bicentenario de Robin Williams, que trata de esos temas, ¿no? No sé si han visto esa película, amigos y amigas, se la recomendamos muchísimo, acerca de este robot que quiere ser humano, estilo Pinocho, pero en este caso, pues con el futuro. Y por supuesto que él quiere sentirse como un humano, cuando a pesar de que él le dicen no puede serlo, él busca ser humano. Entonces, eso es lo que me fascina de esa película, se la recomiendo muchísimo, les va a hacer llorar sin darles muchos spoilers. And Stacy, on another topic, I have read there are many subgenres of these science fiction stories, and I'm going to give you a name, and I'm going to ask you if you can give me an example, or if you know movies that you know that you can relate with this subgenre. Are you ready, Stacy?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, ok. Amigos y amigas, le voy a preguntar a Stacy, esta es una pregunta sorpresa, acerca de estos subgéneros de ciencia ficción, y ella nos va a decir, pues, algunas recomendaciones en este caso. Stacy, for example, can you tell me a climate fiction story that you know? It could be a movie, it could be a book.
Climate fiction story that I know. 2012. I don't know if it was a book.
Well, 2012 is not a book, but it's a story. It's a story. Don't worry. It could be a movie or a book.
Yeah, you know. I think it was a movie. So yeah, I'm not sure if it was a book. It might have been. But 2012, the year 2012, that was a climate movie, I think.
A climate it's one of my favorites, Stacy. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I watched that as a kid. On 29, I was a big fan of that movie.
Yeah, Snowpiercer was another one. I'm trying to think. The day after tomorrow.
The day after tomorrow.
Another one. Interstellar, I think. Oh my gosh, it's been a while. Was Twister considered a climate change fiction movie? Maybe.
Well, yeah, because the story was that they wanted to research more how tornadoes appear out of nowhere. Yeah. So it's a climate fiction story. Amigos y amigas, Stacy nos acaba de dar
it's a classic.
A classic, it's a classic, and it's going to be a sequel the next year, I think. Amigos y amigas, Stacy nos acaba de comentar estos ejemplos de historias de, por ejemplo, de los subgéneros de la ciencia ficción, y por ejemplo, nos habló acerca de las películas de Tornado, El día después de mañana, entre otras. Stacy, we're going on other commercial break, and we're going to be back here. Amigos y amigas, vamos a publicidad y regresamos con más.
curso intensivo de podcast en G-Dance Academy. 100% online, 2 módulos, certificación digital, aula virtual. Producción, edición, marketing, monetización y grabación. Curso intensivo de podcast en G-Dance Academy, plataforma educativa online.
Y estamos de regreso en la parte final de este programa de literatura actual, donde hemos platicado de muchos géneros y bueno, lo de los subgéneros de la ciencia ficción y por supuesto, pues comentaremos más a fondo. We're back here on Literatura Today and we were talking about climate fiction stories, part of the science fiction subgenres that we have. And before the ads, sorry, before the ads, I gave Stacy a list of many subgenres of science fiction stories. So Stacy, it's your turn to ask me any, and I will try to search a movie or a story that is from that genre. Amigos, amigas, ahorita Stacy me va a preguntar ahora qué subgénero de la lista, le di una lista, por cierto, de subgéneros de la ciencia ficción, y ella me va a preguntar ahorita en unos momentos más, pues cualquiera de ellos, y yo le voy a tener que dar una película o una historia acerca de ello. Go ahead, Stacy, you can ask of any of the list.
What about apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic?
Okay, Stacy. Okay, Stacy. Well, you know that genre is my cup of tea because because I wrote an apocalyptic fiction. But if you want other movies or books that I remember that is apocalyptic, it could be The Maze Runner. The Maze Runner is an apocalyptic story. Also, Divergent. Divergent, I think, is an apocalyptic story. And from other movies that are apocalyptic, the one that really scared me for life, Stacy, is 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later, I was very scared. I told you
it's a scary show. It's a scary show.
No. I remember, Stacy. I'm going to tell you I don't remember if I told you the story, but I'm going to tell you again. I remember I watched it 28 days later as a mistake because an NFL game had ended that Sunday. I remember I was 11 years old back on 29, and the movie started with an ape and some activists, and I thought, oh, okay, this is going to be an action movie. But then I remember the monkey jumped on the activist and bite her, and suddenly the activist got red eyes. And 10 minutes later, Cillian Murphy was in the middle of London walking, and everything was very scary for me. So that movie, Stacy, it's an example, a big example of a movie that really touched me as a kid because I was really scared on those 10 first minutes. And later, I remember that they went to the sequel with 28 weeks later, and I watched it all that day. I was 11. I was really scared. I thought it was going to be an action movie, but no. Amigos y amigas, Stacy me acaba de preguntar un ejemplo de historias posapocalípticas, perdón si me trabo, y le comento ejemplos, por ejemplo, de Maze Runner, es un gran ejemplo de estas historias. Tenemos a Divergente también, a The Hunger Games también, story is also Stacy. The Hunger Games are a post-apocalyptic story. Y también le comentaba a Stacy que además de esas historias, hay una en particular que me marcó demasiado. Y esa fue 28 días después, alias Exterminio. In Latin America, Stacy, that movie was called Exterminio, literally extermination. I don't know why. Here in Latin America, normally they change the movie titles. For example, Home Alone, here in Latin America was Mi Pobre Angelito, that in English, it translates to My Poor Angel. I don't know if that relates with Home Alone, but it was the translation. Entonces, le comento a Stacy que yo vi esa película por error de Exterminio, porque había terminado un juego de la NFL. I'm a big fan of NFL, but le digo a Stacy que estaba viendo esa película al inicio con un mono en un laboratorio británico. Llegan unos activistas a liberar al mono, luego el mono muerde a la chica pone sus ojos rojos, y luego 10 minutos después, si conocen a Cillian Murphy, el actor, pues estaba caminando en medio de Londres, todo desolado, y fueron los 10 minutos más aterradores de mi vida, y luego me eché toda la película y la secuela. Entonces esas películas son de aquellas que te marcan, y al hablar, talking about that movie, Stacy, I'm going to be honest with you. With 28 days later and 28 weeks later, I watched them only once, and then in the years later, I tried to watch them again, but I was really scared to see that again because those red eyes from the zombie ones, those red eyes really scared me. And also, Stacy, you told me, Kevin was no angel in Home Alone. Yes, obviously.
No.
I don't know why they put that name, but I think they really like that. Stacy, and now for ending this program, I'm going to ask you the last question. Are you ready, Stacy?
Go for it.
Ok, amigos y amigas, bueno, para ya concluir este programa que hemos hablado, hay tantas historias, y repito, de estas de ciencia ficción, entonces pues, realmente tendríamos un programa de 2 horas. Entonces, por respeto a la audiencia, pues también no será tan largo. Stacy, for the last question, what are your favorite science fiction stories? It could be from these subgenres or whatever, if you like. What are your favorite ones? And also, if you have any advice for those who want to write on this genre. Stacy, ¿me puedes decir, por favor, cuáles son tus favoritas y, por supuesto, algún consejo para aquellos que quieren empezar en este tipo de historias?
So I love my favorite science fiction novels or stories are basically anything with Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise is a great actor. I really liked him in War of the Worlds. I really like him in Minority Report. All those are books. I, Robot, as you mentioned. The Matrix is definitely a must watch. The series or the books, you can read the books as well. They're by William Gibson. And then, of course, Arrival, starring Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner and Forrest Whitaker. Those are some great, great science fiction books. I didn't realize that Jurassic Park was science fiction, but I guess it kind of is because, all that DNA stuff and everything. But yeah, so it was a book by Michael Crichton. You can enjoy that. Advice I would give is that anytime you can combine technology and advancement with real life stories and, emotions and throw in some good old history or maybe some sports or music or art or whatever you're interested in, you can combine it with science fiction, go for it and just have fun with it. And pay attention to the classics.
Pay attention to the classics. Absolutely, Stacy. Amigos y amigas, pues Stacy nos acaba de decir acerca de esta pregunta que le hice sobre cuáles son tus favoritas de estas historias y, por supuesto, pues, qué recomendación, ¿no? Para ustedes. Bueno, pues sin duda ella nos comenta que hay muchos ejemplos. Tiene las películas de Tom Cruise, que son de sus favoritas. Sin duda, pues muy recomendables. También Jurassic Park fue un libro alguna vez. Entonces, Jurassic Park, on this subgenre, Stacy, I think it would fit on the biopunk, and also I think the military science fiction also, I think, because we have the military, we have this biotic things. It would be a mix
Yeah,
between them.
I think so. I think that's right.
Otras historias también, por ejemplo, que tenemos de estos géneros, bueno, pues Stacy también nos recomendó pues, que lean los clásicos de estas historias que mencionamos al inicio de este programa. Y también el consejo, una vez más, que ella les comenta, es que, insisto, investiguen, disfruten el proceso, al final es una historia para ustedes y, por supuesto, después el público la va a admitir, dependiendo cuánta pasión tengan. On my case, Stacy, from these stories, what are my favorites? Well, you already told The Day After Tomorrow. It's one of my favorites. 2012, it's one of my favorites. Also, I didn't mention the steampunk genre, but it's one of my favorites. The steampunk genre is one of my favorites. For those who don't know, the steampunk genre mixes things from the past, like 19th century, and with the technology of today, and mainly with carbon things. I don't know if you have seen, Stacy, a movie called Steam Boy. It's an anime movie. It's a great movie from, I think, it's not from Studio Ghibli, or it's from another anime studio. It's a great story. It's like in a Victorian era, but mix it with these great boats and ships. It's a great story. Also, I recommend you Metropolis. Metropolis is another animated movie that I really love. It's from the manga of Osamu Tezuka, and it's a story about the relationship between a girl that is a robot and a boy that is coming to Metropolis. Metropolis is a city that is filled with many political programs, also with technology that is obsolete, and you have these other stories, so it's really, really great. Amigos, amigas, bueno, para ya concluir en esta parte, le comento a Stacy que pues también tengo el género steampunk, que es uno de mis favoritos, con máquinas de vapor, unas grandes historias ahí tenemos, y por supuesto también tenemos como Steampunk y Metrópolis unas grandes historias, ¿no? Mi consejo para aquellos que están escribiendo estas historias, y yo les comento porque yo he escrito Huracanes 2007, que es de ciencia ficción, es, por supuesto, al igual que Stacy, insisto, creen estas historias con corazón, sobre todo, no tengan miedo en expresarse, y por supuesto tienen una gran lista pueden acercarse ahí en internet. Please search on the bar, friends, there's many subgenres of science fiction. We talk only a little bit about them, but we have many, from Afrofuturism to steampunk to space opera to fiction solarpunk. There are other many subgenres in the science fiction stories, so we recommend you. And my advice for you to write these stories, it's again passion, and also, as Stacy told you, please research and enjoy the process. Amigos y amigas, bueno, con esto concluimos el día de hoy Literatura Actual. Espero que hayan disfrutado esta edición y, por supuesto, nos veremos en otra próxima edición. Stacy, final words for today?
That's it. It's a great genre to research and talk about. I'm sure there's a lot more out there, especially with the Latin lists that we were able to get during the show, and I encourage everyone to check those out and add more. Please just add more in the comments.
Your social media, Stacy, if you want to again share it?
Yes, so you can follow me online at The Writing Wall on Twitter or X, and you can follow us at Writings on the Wall 85 on Instagram, or you can follow Dividing Ridge Books on Instagram and Twitter, at Dividing Ridge Author on Instagram, and at D Ridge Books on X.
Absolutely. Amigos, amigas, sigan a Stacy en The Writing Wall Podcast y, por supuesto, también en Dividing Rich Books en todas las redes sociales. Por mi parte, a mí me pueden seguir como Darío Aguilar Peregrina en todas las redes o como Hurricane Darío, el huracán Darío. E igualmente, Stacy, before finishing, we have now on the G-Dance TV and also on Hello Arte, we have our new magazine that is also now in English. We're going to have the columnists and other stories on our magazine. You are invited, of course, to collaborate in the magazine. In English is right now our magazine. Amigos, amigas, ya tenemos una revista bilingüe completamente, entonces tendremos mucho más. Por favor, chequen la revista de Hello Arte que recientemente se estrenó en el buscador de gracielechagüe.com y, por supuesto, seguiremos aquí más. Thank you again, Stacy. Thank you again for everything. Amigos, amigas, una vez más, thank you.
Bye.